Do you want me to?
We are live.
Hello, everyone, and we would like to thank our panel of returning staff members for joining us today to talk about mentoring in the RA and the LCA role. My name is Russell Avazian. I'm currently the Assistant Resident Director in San Francisco Hall.
And I'm Lisa Rogers. I'm currently a second-year assistant resident director as well, and I work down at Baumhart Hall at the Water Tower campus.
And we will be the moderators for today. And as you're watching this video, please reflect on your mentorship style and how you might answer the questions being asked of the panelists. We have a series of 6 questions for the panelists to answer, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit more about mentorship on that way. So you'll be asked to answer these questions after the completion of the video, so think about how you may answer them or what your answers, how they may be different, or kind of things that may spark your interest as well. But before we begin, I would like our panelists to introduce themselves and their past and present involvements in the Department of Residence Life, and we'll begin with Bridget.
Hi, I am Bridget Bowers, and this is my second year being an RA, and I have been in the Winthrop area both years. I was in Messina Hall my first year, and now I'm in Lemoyne Hall.
Hi, I'm Brendan, also a second-year RA. Last year I was in Regis Hall, which was a first-year hall last year, and this year I'm in Mertz.
Hi, I'm Harmony Dotson. I was an RA 2 years, and last year I was in San Francisco Hall, and this year I'm in Mertz Hall.
Hi, I'm Jessie Morgan. I'm the Greenhouse Learning Community Assistant in San Francisco Hall, and I was also in San Francisco Hall last year.
Sweet. Thank you so much. We'll jump right in with our first question, and we'll start with Bridget. So what does it mean to you to be a mentor?
For me, mentorship is kind of more about leading by example and being able to give your own experiences but still letting other people learn things for themselves. So with new RAs, I find it really important to kind of explain and kind of give your past experiences and different things that you have faced, whether on the job or just kind of in the department in general, but also letting them learn for themselves and being there to ask questions, but still letting them kind of be their independent person and be challenged, but still being there as a guide, if that makes sense.
Thank you. How about we'll move on to Brendan?
Yeah, mentorship to me is really knowing the individual you're working with. So at first, I think, the first couple days, I don't think I could mentor anyone without knowing them for a week, So to me, it's really like knowing the person and then saying, what does this person need from me? What can I offer this person? So I guess really just finding how you know them and what questions you can ask them or suggestions you can give to them to help them.
I guess for me, mentorship is just being another resource for them and being able to use my past experiences and give them advice about the job or anything else and make sure that they feel like they know that they can come to me. But I also really like to emphasize that although there's a lot you can learn from me, I also can learn from you. So I think it's just a balance of learning from each other.
Yeah, I think similar to what basically everyone has already said to me, being a mentor is just being a consistent presence for your staff. So letting people on your staff know that you're there for them if they need you, offering them guidance and sharing your experience with them. And I guess just listening to them and empathizing with them in their situation. And then like Harmony said, learning from them as well.
Thank you very much. Our second question we have for you is, how have you mentored your fellow RAs and LCAs this year as a returning staff member? And we can start with Brendan if he's ready.
Sure. I guess I feel like I'm more of a hands-off mentor in terms of this year. I have 2 mentees this year, but they have both sort of found other people on the staff they connect with a little bit more who are returning than me. And I don't feel like that's a bad thing necessarily. I think in turn, we have official mentor-mentee relationships at Mertz we had, but I think additionally there's other people who aren't my official mentees I guess I've mentored. So I guess that's happened a little more organically for me, but I guess I've just tried to be there for them when they have questions and ask them how they're doing, if they need help with anything, like Jesse said, being a consistent presence.
I think it's been pretty similar for me as well. We had the assigned mentors or mentees, and although I felt like I've mentored them more towards the beginning, I think progressing throughout the semester, it's kind of been just a broad category for even some of the returner RAs on my staff. Like, I've learned a lot from them, and I think for me, I like to lead by example and not so much have that one-on-one conversation. It's just, I'll take the lead in this duty situation, and then you can do it next time, and then giving them that feedback as we go.
As a learning community assistant, my main mentee, I guess, is my fellow LCA, but I feel like I've developed pretty good relationships with the RAs on my staff that are new, and in mentoring them, it was more about like hearing them out if they needed to vent, and then kind of encouraging them and supporting them in their programming ideas, because even though LCAs don't do duty, we still program, we still try to build community in the hall, so being available for them whenever they need me, really.
I think in our area was a little different because we actually weren't assigned specific mentor-mentee pairs, which can also be really nice because it kind of challenges you to go and meet everyone and all the new RAs on your staff. And so I really like to take those one-on-one interactions and kind of check in with people and see how they're doing. Some people will be really willing to ask you questions, and some people will be a little bit more quiet and they kind of feel like they have their thing under control. But I like to sign up for duty days with people that, you know, I may see struggling, or, you know, I just want to get to know a little bit better. And then when you're kind of doing your community walks, you can talk to them and just kind of see how their experiences answer those.
Great. Thank you. Our next question is kind of around some of the challenges you all have had around mentoring. And so what have those challenges been, and what have you done? Let's start with what those challenges are, and then we'll move on to how you face them in the next question. So we'll start with Harmony.
I think for me, one of the biggest challenges is, like, I'm always been the youngest person, like, in my grade, in my family. I'm just, like, the youngest child. And so stepping up and becoming that person where I all of a sudden have all the answers, or, like, it seems like I have all the answers, and trying to figure out, like, how to get out of that phase of looking to other people to help, and instead putting, like, me being in that position to help other people. That was probably my biggest challenge.
I would say for me, my biggest challenge is when you mess up, you know, explaining that, like, this is how I messed up, you know, or, like, you know, if they're like, oh, like, I didn't see you do this on duty, why or why not, you know, like, being honest and just saying, like, you know what, I made a mistake, you know, letting them know, like, you're a human being, I guess, too, is how I work around that. But I guess it's challenging for me, for someone who's, like, looking up to you, to be like, listen, like, I made a mistake.
All right, we'll go to Jesse next.
Okay, sometimes I think something that can be challenging is if the person that you're mentoring or new staff members are kind of looking at you like you have all the answers, and so if they're in a tough spot, they almost want someone to kind of tell them what to do and give them an answer. And sometimes, I mean, you don't really want to just tell them exactly what to do. You want to challenge them to make decisions for themselves and to choose their own path and way to do something. So I think acknowledging that the way that I do something isn't the only right way to do something, and giving them the freedom to do, you know, whatever they choose to do in a situation.
I think a challenge that you can also face is when, you know, you may be assigned a mentor, or you just may see new RAs on your staff, and like I said in the previous question, they may not be, you know, asking questions, or they may seem to kind of have it under control, or they don't really openly talk to you about kind of how their building or floor is going, or programming or residents or anything. And so kind of, you know, that can be a challenge when you want to be able to help and you want to be able to share your experience, but they might kind of have it all handled kind of on their end. So figuring out a way to still have that experience and those conversations with them without, you know, kind of forcing it can be a challenge sometimes.
And so you've spoken a little bit about some of those challenges and a bit about how you've overcome them. Is there anything else any of you wanted to add about how you've navigated some of these challenges?
I guess something to add is that sometimes it's a fine line when you're giving constructive feedback or criticism, because at the end of the day, we're doing pretty much the same job. So even though we're returners, we're not really a superior to anyone else on our staff. We're all just peers in the same role. So you have to kind of make sure you don't overstep your bound and try to tell someone how they should be doing their job, but more just kind of be a guide and a resource, like we already said.
Yeah. I think for me, I like always try to remind myself that whoever I'm working with, I have just as much to learn from them as they do from me. And it might not exactly be related to the RA job, but I can learn something completely different from them, that it's still like valuing that person.
Specifically thinking about moving staffs and buildings, as many of you have, between years, how have you navigated some of those challenges as it relates particularly to mentoring and getting to know a new staff?
And we'll start with Jesse.
Well, I'm in the same building as I was in last year, San Francisco, but in terms of dealing with the new staff and getting to know new staff members, I think because I was in the same building, it was really easy to compare this year's experience to last year's and this year's staff to last year's. So trying to just open myself to an experience and meeting new people and trying to resist the temptation to always go back and think about what everything was like last year. Because if you keep doing that, it's not really welcoming to new people who, are new to the building.
Similar to Jesse, I am also in the same area as I was last year. And it can definitely be an adjustment because it is really easy to compare, this year's experience to last year's. But it is really important to be open to it and also not to necessarily be overbearing when you are sharing last year's experiences, because whether you have returners on your staff, they may be coming from different areas, or new RAs, they are going to want to experience that area and grow in that area, and you have just as much to grow even though you're there for the second time. So it's important to still challenge yourself and still be open to the way they see the area and the challenges they see, without being like, well, this is how it went last year, so this is how it should be this year. Being open to the new people and what they can bring, because a lot of times they have a lot of different experiences that they can add. So.
Brendan or Harmony, anything?
I think for me, being in a new building, it was like one of the biggest challenges for me. But even like the small things, just reminding myself like, okay, well, this building's new for me, it's a new experience, but just trying to find like all the little bright sides. Like I made a very long list of like the positives of being in a new building and just having a new staff, and it really helped make it a really great year, because it's just, there's so much to be grateful for and be happy about. And then once I like could focus on the positive parts, it was so much easier to actually like make those good experiences.
Yeah, I would agree with Harmony in terms of when you're in a new area. I also moved. When you're in a new area, like, treat it as a new experience, because it really is for you. Like, you're returning, and this has been said, but you're returning, but you also are in a new place, or even if you're not in a new place, you have a new staff, there's new elements. So I guess trying to avoid that, like, oh, like, I know how to do duty, like I've been on duty, like doing duty in Mertz was very different for me than doing duty on Regis. And it's just like keeping those things in mind and letting other people on your staff know, like returners, like things are different, but like it's fine, it's all good.
Thank you. And the final question we have for you all, since this is a video that will be going to and is being watched by our rising RAs and LCA returning staff members, what words of wisdom would you give to them pertaining to mentorship in their role? And we'll start with Bridget.
I would say one of the biggest things I would mention is, and you hear it all the time during training, but you really are in a fishbowl in this position, and especially as a returner. So you need to kind of be aware of whether you're on duty or not, kind of how your actions are coming across, and making sure that you're making those intentional interactions with your staff and your residents. So you may get to your staff and you may really jive with certain people, and other people it's a little harder to make those relationships, but really being intentional about reaching out to everyone and trying to make it a cohesive staff is going to be really important, because it'll make the year go a lot smoother. So just kind of lead by example, and just remember that you are kind of being watched, not only by your residents but also by the new RAs. So making sure you're kind of putting your best foot forward.
Sorry.
Very
I would say, although you're in this returning position, don't be afraid to ask questions, because it's very easy to feel like, oh, I need to have all the answers and I'm supposed to have all the answers, and feeling everyone looking at you. But it's also a good thing to ask questions, because then it really opens up the door for your the new RAs to feel comfortable asking questions. Because I don't think anyone knows everything, even if you've been doing this for your third year.
I guess my advice would be to echo something Jesse said earlier in terms of like you're still peers with the new RAs and the returning RAs. You're on a new staff, so it's all right not to be like you're always in a leadership position, but it's all right not to like make yourself that all the time. You know, if you're not having a good day or you don't know, like it's okay to be like, hey, like I don't know, like I don't know, I don't understand too, like you know, you're still like people aren't gonna be like, oh, like my mentor wasn't like didn't know the answer, like no longer my mentor, you know, like I don't know. To me, it's just like important to know like you're still a human being and to take that in consideration.
For me, I think a main thing that comes across to me in terms of a mentor, is just being consistently present, kind of like I said in the beginning. I think if you go into it and you're just on your staff and around your staff quite a bit, that it comes naturally mentoring them, because you're just naturally building relationships with the people on your staff, and so you're talking and venting and asking questions, and it's just kind of a natural process. Whereas if you're never really around or not available to new staff members, no one is really going to come to you for help. And if you decide one day that you want to help and you're like all into being a mentor, I mean, you can't really do it if you don't have relationships with people that are already built on trust or a friendship. So just keeping that in mind and being open to the experience.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else anyone would like to add before we sign off? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. We very much appreciate all of your comments and your help kind of creating mentorship atmosphere for returning RAs and LCAs for next year. And as I said earlier, for those of you watching this, please complete the mentorship module with the questions after you've completed the interview. So thank you again for your time, and we very much appreciate all of your responses.
Thank you.
Bye.